How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
Brooks Running reminds us that we're all powered by something. Whether it's the me-time energy of a run after a day at the office, the electrifying energy of your first marathon, or the infectious energy of a group run with your friends. No matter what energy powers you, Brooks has gear specifically designed to unleash it. So lace up and let it out. Let's run there. Visit brooksrunning.com today to learn more.
Brace the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started today at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Encore une fois.
This is the inside story of Paris 2024. 1 year on, one more time.
The French fans were cheering Rory, Rory as he approached the first tee. IOC President Thomas Bach was here watching as well.
I'm a guy who likes to get the rhythm in the first round, kill it in the semis, and then blow everybody's doors off in the final.
People are talking about you potentially making Olympic history with a number of medals you could win. What are you going there to do?
I'm going there to take as many as I can. If the opportunity's there, I'm going to take it.
This is Encore Une Fois, the inside Paris story from Anything But Footy. 1 year on, one more time. This is our look back at Paris 2024, the Olympic Games, what we were doing, where we went, and who we spoke to. And if you've been listening to the series, you'll know we're up to day 9, Sunday, the 4th of August. And there's just one place to start, really, and that is the final of the men's 100 metres. For many people, it's the 9.5 seconds of the Olympics they really look forward to.
Yeah, you said the rowing, the blue ribboned event was the men's and women's eights just a few days ago. But yeah, this is the thing where when we say we work in the Olympics, how many people then go, well, have you seen the men's 100 metres? Are you going to watch the men's 100 metres? That is what it's all about. And there was some, I think what we were really interested with this men's 100 metres is that we thought Noah Lyles obviously was the star man, but actually it was quite wide open, wasn't it? This race, and look, hey, you were there. It was close. Tell the story.
It was so wide open. I mean, you could throw a blanket over all of them. Just to sort of recap in terms of sort of the British 100 metres, Jeremiah Azu had been DQ'd on the first morning of his heat, so he was out. He wasn't even allowed to run under protest. Louis Hinchcliffe, a lot of people had been talking about him, of course. He did really well, coached by Carl Lewis, and Zarnell Hughes had run the heat. What a night. What a staging for the men's 100 metres final. If I was to be slightly critical, they built it up way more than they did the women's 100 metres final, which I don't think is right. So we got the light show, the laser show, the fireworks. I mean, they weren't literally fireworks, but you know what I mean. All the athletes were kind of introduced individually into the arena as well. And there was this and actually I've been in the Olympic Stadium for a men's 100 metres final before when Usain Bolt won it in 2012 in London. So it was the second time I'd actually been in the stadium for
all
one,
right, show off.
Which is quite the privilege. But I was properly working at this one, and I knew what was about to unfold. That whoever won, there was going to be this sort of monumental battle then, because what you then need to do after the race is obviously try and get the interviews and speak to the people that are involved. And I knew that whoever won, this was going to be a battle, because whoever won, really, it was going to be athletes I didn't have any kind of real relationship with. I mean, we had interviewed Noah Lyles at the London Diamond League, but he wasn't going to stop and go, hey, Michael. Talk sport. Like, not showing off, but some of the British athletes would get to the top of the ramp, people we spoke about yesterday, like Lavi Nilsson, and would automatically stop because she recognizes the face. That wasn't going to happen with 100 meters. The race itself, I mean, I remember, obviously I'd had 2 nights in my position at the top of the ramp, and it'd been all fairly relaxed and nice. And then as this race got closer and closer, more and more people turned up.
Because it's a protected area, isn't it? Supposedly. And suddenly volunteers from every corner of the stadium suddenly were there, where there were no volunteers normally. I remember thinking, if I'm going to have a health emergency at any point during these Olympic Games, I wouldn't mind it being now, because there's an awful lot of people stood around wearing like medic on their bibs. Although, weren't we there one evening when someone collapsed, one of the athletes, and we had to tell people?
Yes,
we had to get the medics to go to them because they were collapsing in the mix zone.
So there was volunteers, there were medics, and obviously I was in the media zone, which I've talked about before. 79 different interview positions. Now, often a lot of those interview positions would be empty because there wasn't athletes from that television or radio network's country. Every interview position was rammed full with as many people as you could possibly get into the little area. And you know how big the area was. That tiny. We had. Basically it was you could stand 3 of you in it, but you'd have to be single file.
Like a bus stop.
It
was a bus queue.
And then I remember, and I haven't really mentioned this, but after I was radio position 18, and there was 19, which was Brazil next to me. And then there was another zone, and that was just the free-for-all zone behind a barrier. And they were just climbing over each other. And the race itself was, I mean, phenomenal. I've heard lots of different people commentate on this race, and no one was sure who won it. I mean, it was so close. I think most people pumped for Kishane Thompson as the winner. The gut
Jamaican,
feeling. Who actually ended up obviously with the silver medal. As we know, Fred Curley of the US with the bronze, and Noah Lyles got the gold. And there was quite the long wait before we finally got the confirmation in the stadium that Noah Lyles was the Olympic champion. And if he'd worked really hard for that gold medal, I now knew I had to work really hard to try and get that gold medal winning interview.
They were all under 10 seconds as well, weren't they? Every single person who finished the final, which shows how close it was. But how crucial was it that Lyles actually won it by a nose, as in his nose, because it was that close? But because he'd been built up, as you said, the men's 100 meters is a spectacle in itself. But this is someone who World Athletics and John Ridgen had told us, that as CEO, you want big names to dominate for a bit, to try and create a narrative, try and create a story. And Noah Lyles was that person. If he hadn't have won, it wouldn't have been that good for athletics, I don't think, would it?
No, because we've been desperately searching, haven't we, for the new Usain Bolt. And I think in Noah Lyles, that's probably as close as we've got in terms of a sprinter. And there were a few sort of things in the background. There'd been the Netflix documentary with the sprinters, which obviously he'd featured in heavily in. So had Sha'Carri Richardson, but she'd only won the silver medal in the women's 100 meters final the day before. There'd obviously been a bit of rivalry domestically between Noah Lyles and Christian Coleman, but Noah Lyles was seen as the good guy. Christian Coleman was seen maybe as the bad guy because of the issues around doping tests and things that had dogged him previously. And I remember speaking to Christian Coleman at the World Indoor Championships, and he said, look, if you guys want to build a narrative, Christian Coleman against Noah Lyles, and that sells tickets and that gets eyeballs on the sport, I'm here for it. I'm up for it. Noah Lyles wasn't backwards in coming forward. He'd been critical about other sports in his country, saying, how can these baseball players get paid so much and have so much attention when their World Series isn't even an event that features the rest of the world? Whereas I've literally got to go up against 201 other nations here.
And also, he'd been at every event. Because you said we'd interviewed him at the Diamond League. You'd interviewed him at the World Indoors, hadn't you? He came, didn't he?
Yeah, he'd come to Glasgow. We all talked about Christian Coleman in Glasgow because I think he'd won the 60 meter, but he'd come to Paris saying that he wanted to win the 100, the 200, the 4x1, And he also suggested that he might put himself forward for the 4x4 as well. So, I mean, he came with the backstory, and Olympics and sport needs the stories, it needs the names, and actually his story of the Olympics is only just beginning.
Isn't it just? Yeah.
If anything, it got bigger and better in the days to come. But yeah, he won. And then I knew, as I said, I had to try and get this interview with him. And I thought to myself, look, he's not going to stop ordinarily and speak to UK radio, especially because he had this schedule where he was going to run in relays and the 200 meters. He's going to want to go and get himself sorted and get himself, warmed down and refueled and everything else.
And as the last event of the day, you don't get your medal that night either, do you?
No, and then obviously it's late as well, so there's no reason to hang around. So how then do we get Noah Lyles speaking on Talk Sport? I got an interview with Fred Curley. I'd got my microphone into a huddle with Kishane Thompson, and managed to scream a couple of questions at him. So we'd got the bronze and the silver, but I'd noticed that there was obviously NBC, the rights holders, the television rights holders in the US, and they literally send thousands of people to the Olympics. So they'll have like all the national broadcasters, but they'll have what they call all the NBC affiliates. So all the local stations will also send people. And there was an NBC affiliate there from DC, as she kept shouting, which was basically Noah Lyles' home TV station. And obviously, as a reporter, she'd known Noah Lyles for a long time, seen him come up through the ranks. And I thought to myself, if he's going to stop and do one more interview in that crazy zone after where we are, it will be for his local TV station. And so I positioned myself next to them. Now, I'm also not that forceful and rude that I would have shouted over their interview, because I wouldn't have wanted them to do it the following night if I was interviewing Phoebe Gill, for example. I see where I am in the pecking order. He is their athlete, but I knew that I could get my microphone in and record some audio and maybe get a couple of questions after the interview. And my hunch paid off, because, by the time Noah Lyles got to the top of the ramp where I was meant to be, he was just racing through. And he looked as though he was out of there. I thought, well, we're not going to get any sort of audio or interview with Noah Lyles tonight. And then she was shouting, Noah, DC. And he turned, recognized her, stopped, answered 4 or 5 questions, answered another couple that were shouted at him. And then he was off as quick as he'd won that final.
Doesn't it show the power of relationships? And it's something we've been banging on about to so many people, that you can't just turn up at these events and expect people to come and talk to you if you haven't put the work in. And it's why we do what we do at the moment, why we carry on chit-chatting about Olympic sport while nobody else is talking about it.
And, and like I said, I piggybacked on that relationship shamelessly, but I also didn't and wouldn't have got in the way of the job and I don't know the name of the reporter, but I let her do her job. And it was a lovely, honest, heartfelt interview that she did, because she knew about his coach that had passed away, and she knew about his background and everything else. And so it was quite a different interview, I think, in that respect, to perhaps what he had done when he spoke to some of the other networks, some of the big, larger networks earlier on in that interview process. And we were able to get that interview on the radio that night. And so we got the gold, the silver, and the bronze medalist. And
it feels like you've done your job then, doesn't it? When you've got it, it's like you can relax slightly.
Yeah, and I remember we've spoke about the fact I was staying in Bercy, this brilliant, beautiful part of Paris with this little strip of bars and restaurants. And I remember going back to Bercy that night, and it would have been late, but we had a little arrangement, didn't we, with one of the one of the owners of one of the establishments, and in fact there was a lot of the British press would go back there of an evening and just have that little. It was too late. Should have gone to bed, because it's another early start the next morning. But you're just such on a high, and having done my job that night and knowing that I delivered the gold, silver, and bronze medalist interviews, which is what you need to do as the trackside reporter. Just to have gone back to that, Laura, I remember just sitting there with my small fizzy beer, my Kronenberg, and just thinking to myself, you know, if I get hauled home tomorrow for whatever reason, I'd be pretty satisfied with what I've achieved tonight.
Well, it was quite a night at athletics because it was the women's 800-meter semis, where Keely Hodgkinson obviously progressed through to the final as we expected her to, and the men's 1500-meter semis as well. So Josh Kerr versus Jakob Ingebrigtsen. We'll talk more about all of those, of course, in the days to come. So quite the night for Michael at the athletics at the Stade de France. What did you make of the venue for the Stade de France? I was waxing lyrical about it a couple of episodes ago.
Yeah, I thought it was a fantastic venue. I think with everything, it's the people, it's the crowds, and the presentation and staging was just brilliant.
The purple track as well was immense, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think. And was it Berlin at the World Championships?
When it was blue.
The sort of color of the track, and suddenly I went, tracks don't have to be orange. And I'd been there for the rugby sevens, obviously, and just seen and come back a couple of days later. It was like a different place. It was fantastic, and it was an interesting night that night. You talk about the 800 meters. I think I had Phoebe Gill in tears that night. 17 comes from Wheat Hampstead, which was kind of like the next village to where I grew up and where you now live, coincidentally. And so we've always sort of talked about, and she runs for St Albans, which is where I was born. So we've always talked about that together. And she'd made the semi-finals, and it was a lot tougher, I think, than she thought it was going to be. It was just, I just thought, having always sort of said to everybody, the Olympics is much more than track and field. That's very much a British blinkered view of what the games is, because in other countries around the world, track and field is not the focus. But then having got there and been there every night, I was like, yeah, this is special.
So that venue was special. I went to a new venue on day 9, the golf. And again, a sport that you kind of think, is it really an Olympic sport? It was originally, it had a long break, came back. You were there for the Justin Rose moment in Rio, of course, where Team GB won the gold. Didn't quite work out in Tokyo from a British point of view, but we went in, as I mentioned in the episode previously, that Tommy Fleetwood was going in 11 under, I think, joint leader on the final round of the men's golf. And I did what all Olympic fans did. I got public transport. I took the train, the RER out, and then I got a spectator bus. And I was sitting there with lots of Irish fans around me. And I was talking to one of them, and he said, I've been here for 3 days. I've come for the Olympics. I've just come to the golf. That's all I've come to see. And it was eye-opening to speak to and meet people who the golf Olympics is just as important to them as the Masters or the Open or the US Open or whatever. And he told me that day to watch out for Scotty Scheffler. And I was like thinking, well, he's about 5 or 6 shots behind. Anyway, I went in, and the Masters champion Scheffler, of course, came from nowhere to win. So well done to the Irishman. He was bang on. Tommy Fleetwood finished second, which was a great performance from him. Only, I think, Team GB's 4th ever medal in golf. So it shows the achievement for him. I saw him actually as I was walking into the Golf National, as it's called, just outside Paris, and he was hugging his son goodbye. And I didn't interrupt him because I thought that would be a moment that I shouldn't be doing that. But after that, I did wish him well and said, hopefully I'll see you in the mix zone. It didn't quite work out like that. He was swept through the mix zone, as was Rory McIlroy and Scotty Scheffler. But I stayed. I got my interview with Tommy afterwards, and what a course the Golf National is. I thoroughly enjoyed my golfing experience there, reporting in this huge tent with the screens around me. I felt like I was Peter Alice, whispering with the golf news here and there. And it was really busy for the Irish radio stations that I was reporting for as well. I wanted to keep them up to date with what Rory and Shane Lowry was doing. Shane did stop actually in the mix zone, and I said, will you do a quick interview with me, Shane, for Talk Sport? And he went, After that round, no way. He actually swore, but yeah, at least he stopped and said hello. And what I was really hoping for is, because going on at Roland Garros that afternoon, so I was doing my updates with the golf. We had Djokovic and Alcaraz playing the men's singles final, so I was literally keeping across that, and it was going to and fro, and it was 7-6, 7-6, so 2 tiebreak wins for Djokovic over Alcaraz to, of course, claim that victory, his only gold medal, the only title that he hadn't won. He'd won bronze in Beijing, but 16 years later won the gold in Paris. A 2-hour 50 match, and I was updating the media team in the mix zone because I was like thinking, the Haribo's not working. Maybe I can keep them up to date with, because they kept asking me what's the score. So I kept them up to date with the Djokovic and Alcaraz, but I still didn't get me interviews. But hey ho,
You got your chat with Tommy Fleetwood eventually, because I remember hearing it, and it was a lovely interview, really good interview that you did with Tommy. And I remember him saying, like, growing up, we didn't have this, we didn't have the Olympics. But I think he, obviously now as a 2-time Olympian, having gone to Tokyo as well, I think with each edition of the games, he and the others now are going back and spreading the word about how special it is to be at the Olympics. And I think Tommy Fleetwood, I know winning the silver medal helps, but I think he gets it now. He was so, when he was speaking to you, he was so nice about, what it was like to see all the other athletes. And he appreciates that he's in a slightly different situation as a professional golfer to so many of the athletes at the Olympic Games, but he understood that and he got it.
Yeah, it was a nice guy. And actually that day, because we'd stayed so late, I got a lift back with Team GB in the car. They fortunately gave me a lift back I was like, I'll just go back to the media centre in the heart of Paris. And I'd learned from my mistake with Roland Garros, and I went and found a restaurant and I sat and had a meal on my own, listening probably to you guys doing the 100 meters and the athletics. And then I had my meal and I went back to my hotel, and I'd learned from my mistakes of previous of trying to push and not look after yourself. So it was a great start to the day, because it was actually the day my wife and son left that morning as well. So I was leaving my lovely hotel in the Boulevard Haussmann, having to go back to my little place in Gentil, which wasn't gentle at all. Anyway, the other headlines: Harry Hepworth made history with the first ever Olympic medalist on the vault apparatus. He won bronze in the gymnastics for Paris 2024.
I was there for that one. I was at the Bercy Arena for that.
You were there. The men's hockey were knocked out to India. They lost again in the quarterfinals to India. The men's hockey 4-2. So their tournament was over. And just a quick word on shooting, Michael.
Yeah, Amber Rutter robbed of a gold.
She was.
I never.
Where was VAR?
Yeah, I never thought I'd say this, but we needed VAR, because normally in the international shooting competitions, they have like a VAR system, but for some inexplicable reason, they don't at the Olympics. So she was in the gold medal match. Thought she's a skeet shooter who had done a lovely piece with you and I in the build up to the games, where she talked about the fact that her son Tommy had been born just a couple of months before, and she didn't think she'd get back, but with support from UK Sport and Team GB and British Shooting, she got back, and she should have won the gold. Well, she should have still been in the competition, because she felt she hit the target, but it was ruled that she'd missed. So the gold medal went to the skeet shooter from Chile. Now, shooting was a good couple of hours away from Paris. So if you were listening yesterday, we spoke about how we had to make separate arrangements for interviews at sailing. We had to do the same with shooting. So, Craig at British Shooting did the interview with Amber for us. And sent it, and we played it out on Talk Sport, and they credited me for it. So that was good. I was to bump into Craig the following day, actually, at the Aquatic Centre, but that is a story for tomorrow's. In fact, it's not the following day; it's the day after next. That is a story for Day 11's podcast.
We will look forward to that. This is Encore Une Fois, the inside Paris story from Anything But Footy, 1 year on from those brilliant games last summer.
Encore une fois, Paris 2024, one more time.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.